Thank you. Thanks for having me here today. And I'd like to thank John for one of the more creative presentation titles I've ever been given to work with. But just as a bit of a disclaimer, it's not age specific, so hopefully everyone will get something out of today. And it's not just for agronomists, it's got a bit of a broad spectrum across the grains industry. So I'm going to spend today talking about the why. And a lot of people, when they first get into social media, they feel that they have to. They're like, oh, everybody's saying that we've got to get on board. So they'll jump in, but they won't understand why they're there and consequently won't see any value. So I'm going to spend this session here, which is a relatively short session, talking about why use it. We're going to concentrate mainly on Twitter today because that's where I see the best bang for your buck in terms of social media use for grains information. Twitter is short, little bursts of information, really perfect, complements auto steer really nicely. We'll have a bit of a chat about what you can expect from it if you do choose to jump in, and a couple of things to consider about what you should and shouldn't do. If you are wanting to learn a little bit more about the how to use the technology, I've got an unstructured session this afternoon, immediately after lunch, or I'll be around for the next 2 days, so you can come and see me at Coonabarabran. We had people sit down and do everything from setting up an account, so from the bare bones, to people that might have been using it for a little while and wanted to have a bit more of an understanding about how they could better develop flows of information or set up mobile notifications so that stuff could come straight through them when they needed it. I've also written my paper. It has a lot more sort of how-to and explanatory type stuff in it. And it's also got a series of checklists as well too. So if you feel so inclined, you can go through and start developing your own sort of personal strategy about why might I use social media and what I'd expect to get from it. But just to begin, I want to have a little bit of a gauge where the audience is at in terms of technology and social media use. So John has prepared a couple of keypad slides for me. Now you'll have a little duver in front of you. Not everyone will have one. So can people with the keypads just indicate which photo best explains your relationship with technology as a whole? So are you one of these people that uses it everywhere? Are you know what's going on, but you know you're perhaps not utilising it to its fullest potential? Are you just trying, but it's just not working for you? And is there just, you'll get there one day. All right, so we've got quite a few people who, if you're here, please wash your hands. But most of us are sitting here, that we've got a bit of an idea, but nobody's in this last category, which is really heartening to see. Next slide, please, John. So now I want you to think about social media in particular. Now, when you think of social media, what's the first thing that springs to mind? Is it celebrities? Is it what people had for breakfast? Is it pictures of cats? Or is it a farm business tool? All right, what people had for breakfast and celebrities is coming up. And a few cats. Can I just have a show of hands of people that thought it was a farm business tool? There's a couple. And were the people with that, keep your hands up if you actually use social media for farm purposes yourself. So, there's a few. All right, we'll go on to the last keypad question now. And I just want you to have a think about social media that you use yourself. So you can select multiple responses here. So you can hit more than one button. So just indicate which ones you actually use. All right, so quick indication. Put your hands up if you use Twitter. Leave it up if you use it for farm business. So a couple of people put their hands down. Hands up if you use Facebook. A lot more. Leave them up if you use it for farm business. Quite a few went down then. YouTube. Lots of hands. Leave it up if you use it for farm business. About 7 or 8 went down. LinkedIn, hands up. Quite a few. Leave them up if you use it for farm business. And quite a few went down again. Okay, we'll switch back across to the main presentation if I can now, John. And for anyone who's was a little bit lost there, hopefully by the end of the presentation you might have a bit of a clearer idea on some of the stuff that we're talking about. So look, it's not all celebrity gossip and irrelevant noise, and I could see that what people ate for breakfast and celebrity gossip was something that resonated quite well with people there. But look, basically saying I'm not going to go near social media because people talk about stuff that's not relevant to me is kind of like saying, well, I hate all books because I once read 50 Shades of Grey. Basically, it's people that are using social media, and you choose the pockets of people that are relevant to what you want to receive information about. So this is a big data imagining of the types of conversations, of the themes that people are talking about on Twitter in Australia. So as you can see here, agriculture actually gets a mention of its own, which means that it's big enough that it has its own cluster, that there's a huge amount of people talking about agriculture on Twitter in Australia. And what you can see here, if you're talking about agriculture, you might have a bit of a crossover into politics and news, opinions, utilities and services, but you'll stay well away from food over here. Unfortunately, you miss out on the wine and beer as well too. And also the bands and teen cultures is well over here. So there's not a lot of crossover. You manage to stay quite well away from that. And you know, I've got a good friend who's in the psychology realm and another friend who's in education. Twitter is their first port of call for keeping on top of everything that happens in their industry. Even my mum, who works a couple of days in family planning and a couple of days in palliative care, she likes a good balance. She went to a palliative care conference and came back and said, I need to be on Twitter because the keynote speaker says that she pushes out all the information that she comes across on Twitter, and I want to be able to tap into that the minute it comes to hand. Look, yes, there's some annoying aspects, and I was talking to Peter and Graham last night and they were saying that pictures of food are so annoying. I appreciate that entirely, but the good thing is if someone's putting out pictures of food, you just hit the unfollow button and you don't have to see that anymore. And if anybody wants to know, if you use Facebook for personal reasons and you have people that do that kind of stuff and you can't unfriend them because it might be your mother, come and see me and I'll show you how to hide it so it doesn't appear in your news feed. One of my most annoying aspects about social media, and there are a lot, is this one here, is this working out thing that you see that somebody went for a run and they ran 12 kilometres in a really short period of time and then they take a photo and they look fantastic, and the last thing that I want on the very rare occasion that I go for a run is to be anywhere near a camera. That's one of my more annoying things. But look, there are annoying aspects about it, I understand that, but we don't have the ability to shut social media down. It's something that's there, it exists, it's growing rapidly every day, so and there are positive aspects that we can take on that. So let's focus on those ones. So where social media has come from initially, and this is probably going back 6 or 7 years ago, is when social media started to be really used for agricultural purposes. It sort of started as a bit of a response to a lot of misinformation that was being perpetuated by people that perhaps didn't have any exposure to ag but had these ideas that weren't necessarily true. So a lot of growers, and this was grower-led, started jumping online to combat some of these misconceptions, particularly around the society and the critics element. So people were really there to try and give a perspective to consumers. But as they were there, they realised that they could talk to one another and share information, and media outlets and other businesses started coming online as well too in response to a growing number of farmers who were already there and using the mediums really well. And it started to become this place that was all about getting access to really timely information the minute that it comes to hand. So if an agronomist sees something in a paddock, they can tweet about it then and there instead of having to wait till a newsletter or a publication comes out further down the track. It's getting that information out the minute you need to know it. And then you can also not only just access that information, but you also have the ability to engage with it and question it. Now, for anybody who's not familiar with Twitter, these are some examples of tweets. These are all parts of smaller conversations, and if anyone would like to have a look at what a longer conversation looks like, please stop me at any time over the next 2 days. But here's just a snapshot of examples I took from one day of conversations that are happening. So people are using it for just general observations that others might find useful. They're using it for business. They're using it for troubleshooting and machinery. troubleshooting is something that you see very regularly. My brother was able to fix a problem with our yield monitor by just going on Twitter over last harvest. And then this one here I pulled out, I thought that was incredibly interesting, but this grower here was just saying that because of his exposure to Twitter, because of the types of people that he was able to have conversations with, he was really starting to question his system and going, am I doing the best thing? Is there a better way I could be doing things? And then this ensued with a lovely conversation with both mixed farmers and continuous croppings, talking about the benefits and the pitfalls of their systems. And it was a really, really lovely conversation of growers just sharing learnings. Look, is it going to go away? Is it a fad? I came across something from an organisation called Social Farm the other day. 87% of Australian farmers joining Twitter before 2010 were still tweeting in 2014. So that's quite a nice adoption statistic, is that there's people jumping on board and they're finding enough there to keep them there. And in some cases it's actually, I was talking to a grower recently who has young kids and has consequently lost control of the TV remote. And he's like, well, Twitter is now my replacement for television, but also it's sort of replaced other bits and pieces. If a truck turns up 10 minutes late, he'll have a quick read through. And now he finds that when he gets his agricultural paper he's already read everything that's in there. So he finds that it allows him to keep up to date with everything as it's coming through. So anyone who's not familiar with Twitter, short burst of information about the size of a text message. You choose people that you want to receive information from. That could be as few or as many as you want, and that comes through in bursts of information that you can quickly scan through and choose, is this relevant to me or not? And if it is, you can drill into a link or a photo or a video that gives you more information. I'll give you a couple of case studies of how various people using it, starting with GRDC and myself. So we let people know what's going on. If we have some of the manuals or grow notes that James was demonstrating first thing this morning coming out, we can let people know and get them picked up that way. We can promote events such as this, we can promote research and projects, basically keep people aware of what's happening. We can look at conversations and see if there's anything that we contribute in terms of going back to harvest. There was a conversation about which is better for faba beans, is it direct heading or windrowing? We were able to direct people towards A, a paper, and B, a researcher that can help them make that decision. So it's being able to direct people towards stuff that can help them make decisions. We have a look at what's happening in the grains industry across the whole so that we can be aware of what's happening in paddocks and laboratories all around the world. We can listen to feedback on ways that we can improve, and we can guide communications. So, we can see if we might be hearing a bit of information that something could be a particular issue. We can throw something out there and see if it gets enough interest that we might want to be able to build something bigger, write something more, get more information out there depending on how many people are interested in it. We're also looking at data and analytics, and this is something that's starting to get very, very sophisticated with social media, where we can look at trends, look at ways that we can continually improve and get insights as to how people are using electronic devices and how they're looking on the web, and whether people prefer to watch a video or read a paper for instructional purposes, that kind of stuff. And there's also an element of training and support for people that want to jump on board with this kind of stuff. How are growers using it? And this was something that I presented at Coonabarabran last week, and a lot of people came up to me afterwards and said that this was something that they didn't realise, is that if you are new to social media, it is absolutely okay to be a stalker. You can sit there and you can just watch the information that's coming out and take that in. And that's a lot of people said to me, they're like, oh, I would really like to get the information that's on social media, but I don't want to tweet anything. And that's okay. That's absolutely fine. Just remember that a bit further down the track, if you do want to ask a question or get help, people will be more likely to converse with you if you've had a bit of engagement before. But certainly if you're new to it, having a look and just getting that information is perfectly understandable. There's also people that are wanting to learn. One of my favourite growers using Twitter that I've come across is in his 70s and getting close to retiring, but he said that Twitter was the best thing that he ever did in terms of improving his understanding of grain marketing. He has a selection of about 45 people that he follows from around the world that work in the grain marketing realm, and he says that he keeps an eye on that, and that's just improved his understanding of how international markets work tenfold. And the last one as well too, which can really not be overlooked, is the social element. And a friend of mine from back around home had moved back onto the farm, not too many young farmers around where he is, and just, you know, lots of long hours on the tractor and just really wanted someone to talk to. And he's got that ability to be able to continually learn, get information, improve his ability, but also have that feeling that he's connected at the same time. Researchers and advisors, I'll pull out a couple of tweets, and remember again, these are parts of bigger conversations, but you might want to just be able to do observations while you're out and about. And this gives you also the ability to go back over and have a nice timely overview of where you've been, what you've done and what you've seen. This one I quite like, and you probably won't be able to see the whole thing, but that doesn't matter, is this is communicating research throughout the life of the project. So instead of waiting until you get to the end of a research project and putting out a paper, researchers are putting out preliminary trial results, getting people to ask questions, getting feedback, seeing if they've missed anything, that kind of stuff, which I think is really lovely to be able to, you know, let people know this is what's coming in the research, but also invite feedback from industry to make sure that it really is grower focused. You've got the ability to ask questions. If you have something that needs promoting, whether it's an event, a publication, a service, anything like that, you can promote. And you can also seek trial data or anything like that. So there's lots and lots of ways that you can use it to either let people know what you're doing or seek feedback on what you're doing or ask questions to help you do what you're doing better. And here's an example that I pulled from an overseas agronomist. By tweeting what we see and where we see it, we can help farmers scout for the next issue and address it at a lower threshold, which holds up yields. So as you can see, lots of different ways that you might choose to use social media. No one right way to use it, lots of wrong ways to use it. Pictures of breakfast are definitely out. But here are some examples that in the grains industry you might want to use it, as we said, to be a stalker, to network, to distribute information to help clients or potential clients make decisions, to invite feedback on something that you would like to improve and need a bit of wider scope, to do some troubleshooting for something that could be a machinery issue or a disease or a pest identification, to promote, and to build just either a business or a personal brand as well too. And this is something that we're really starting to see emerging in social media, is investing in employees' personal brands, because people are far more likely to go and speak to an individual that they see value in instead of going to a brand logo. And then you can get real-time intel as well too by monitoring and analysing industry conversations. How might it be used in the future? I'm going to step away from ag for a moment. This is a paper that came out back in January. Now, I have a slight issue with correlation versus causation in this one, but here's just an example. Everybody's familiar with Google being able to predict flu outbreaks because people start Googling, you know, flu-like symptoms. This is basically a couple of counties in the US. They analysed the sentiment of language in tweets and then overlaid that with data about people that had died from coronary heart attacks. And basically, if the sentiment in tweets in a county was negative, it was a far better indicator that there would be a higher incidence of coronary heart disease in that particular county. And it was a much better indicator than any of these other demographics here, which is very good for anyone who's married. So, as I said, you know, I think this is quite interesting, and someone did say to me the other day that, does this mean if I tweet I will die of a heart attack? No, not necessarily. Just if you live in a county in the US that has a high incident of negative tweets, then your statistics aren't looking good. But, you know, in terms of how this might be useful in ag further down the track, what does this allow us to predict? What can we have a look at? What can we see? And I know that marketing companies already use Twitter quite heavily as a bit of a gauge on what's happening out there. So it could be really interesting to see what we can use in a big data sense in this stuff going forward. Thank you, James. A couple of quick do's and don'ts if you do choose to engage in this medium. Be a real person. Remember that it's still people talking to people at the end of the day. There's just a digital interface there. You're more than welcome to not just talk about work all the time. You might want to talk about cricket or your local community or something like that, but try not to be all over the shop because people want a little bit of consistency. Respond to comments, be relevant, and remember that once it's online, it's permanent. Anything that you put out, you should consider a little mini personal press release. Things not to do, don't be too pushy, don't try and sell all the time. Don't troll. For anyone who doesn't know that term in its new sense, it doesn't mean hiding under a bridge and making fun of goats. It means going out to deliberately try and inflame. And this is where, particularly if you're looking at an animal activist side of things, if you do want to go in to try and persuade consumers, go for a middle ground. When you have a head to a heart debate, you're never going to change anyone's mind. I know I've got a sister who's a vegan, so that makes Christmas fun. Look, don't give out too much information as well too. Be a little bit mindful, think of that personal press release. And the last one too, particularly for all the advisors in the room, be wary of providing advice online. And you do see quite regularly now, a grower might ask a question and people will come back and say, give me a call and we'll discuss it for your individual circumstances off a public forum, which is perfectly understandable. So just be mindful of that. So a couple of take-home messages. Social media doesn't replace existing methods. It complements and it reinforces. So all the information that you're getting on Twitter is coming from people that provided you with that advice in the first place. It's just a different mechanism that they're pushing it out there. This is a frustrating time in terms of adoption, but it will get easier. We've got clients that have preferences for everything from a fax machine to Facebook, so trying to fill that can be incredibly frustrating. But I did have a bit of data across my desk the other day that was basically saying that for Gen Y customer service preferences, the order is electronic messaging, social media, smartphone apps, then the telephone as number 4. And I was like, oh yeah, well that's Gen Y, until I sat down and realised that Gen Y starts from people born in 82, which means we've now got Gen Y people who are in their 30s, which is a little bit scary. So preferences are changing in terms of how people want to communicate and receive information. Understand why you're using it first. Don't jump on board because you think that you have to. Go, I want to be on because I want to get the latest information and promote myself as an agronomist in a particular area of expertise or something to that effect. And please feel free to use the check boxes in my paper to help you set that why. Data and analytics are getting so much better, so use them, really use them to figure out what works, what doesn't work. Channels will come in and out of vogue, so be flexible. So in a couple of years' time, I might be up here saying, yep, Twitter's dead in the water and there'll be something new with a ridiculous name up next. So that's something that we're constantly changing, but we see that in agriculture all the time. And the last thing, and this is something that if you told me I'd be saying 4 years ago when I first started playing in the space with social media for the grains industry, that, I'm starting to get people come up to me and go, we'll go to social media and we'll ask everyone about their off-label chemical use. That's not going to work, It's not going to be able to give you everything. Remember that you've still got a certain data set. It's a certain type of farmer that's on social media, that's on Twitter. So make sure you use it, as I said in the top dot point, make sure you use it as a part of what you're doing, but not the be-all and end-all. And of course, the very last one and the most important message is don't believe everything you read on the internet because there's a picture with a quote next to it. Thank you very much. I'll take questions.